Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined my marriage would collapse in the span of a single sentence, one thrown like a grenade across my kitchen table. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of ordinary weekday that should have ended with leftovers, quiet conversation, maybe a little silence between two tired adults. Instead, Emily stood there, arms crossed, chin raised, eyes burning with something too cruel to be accidental. She had rehearsed this moment. I could see it in the stiffness of her shoulders and the practiced indifference in her voice. "Daniel," she said, exhaling sharply as if my name tasted bitter on her tongue. "I'm pregnant, and it's not yours. It's your brother's. Deal with it." The world didn't tilt. It dropped straight down, like an elevator cable had snapped inside my chest. My first thought wasn't anger or denial. It was confusion so deep it hollowed me out. My brother Matthew? The same brother I had defended 100 times? The same brother I'd helped get back on his feet after he blew up his last relationship? I stared at Emily, searching her face for some kind of joke, some crack in her expression that would admit this was a horrible prank. But her eyes stayed cold. Too calm. Too steady. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The words jammed in my throat like gravel. The clock ticked behind me. Slow, steady, mocking. Emily didn't blink. She didn't tremble. She didn't even look sorry. That was the part that stunned me more than the confession itself. Not betrayal. Not infidelity. But the absolute absence of remorse. When I finally managed, though my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone standing several feet behind me. "Does it matter?" she replied, shrugging lightly. "It happened. I made my choice. And now you need to figure out how you're going to handle it. Handle it. Like this was some kind of scheduling inconvenience. Like she was telling me the power company had overbilled us. And I needed to make a phone call to straighten it out. How long?" I pressed again, jaw tightening. Emily sighed dramatically, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "If you must know," she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder, "it started 3 months ago. And yes, before you ask, it continued. And yes, I knew exactly what I was doing." My stomach turned. 3 months. That covered the weekend Matthew stayed with us. The night Emily said she was working late. The morning she claimed she had a dentist appointment. Memories rearranged themselves into something uglier, something sharp-edged. "And he knows." I asked. "Oh, he knows," she answered, smirking faintly. "But he said you'd react badly, so he thought it would be better if I told you first." My mind flashed with heat, anger, betrayal, disbelief all twisting together. Matthew, my own brother, the one person I trusted enough to hold every secret I'd ever had. The person who once punched a bully in 6th grade because the kid made fun of me. The same kid who swore he'd never turn his back on me. Not for anything. Emily took a step closer, lowering her voice. "You're not leaving," she said, almost whispering. "You're going to stay. You're going to accept this. And you're going to raise this child like it's yours, because that's what a man does." The arrogance of it hit me like a slap. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't begging for another chance. She wasn't even offering justification. She was issuing orders. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The walls felt too close, the lights too bright, the kitchen suddenly too small to contain everything collapsing inside me. But beneath the shock, beneath the shaking confusion, something colder began to settle, a clarity I'd never felt before, rising slowly through the fog. I straightened, forcing my heartbeat to steady. "Is that what Matthew said?" I asked. Emily hesitated for the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "What do you mean?" I didn't answer. I just kept watching her, letting the silence stretch. People reveal themselves in silence. Emily was no different. Her confidence cracked just slightly, enough to make her shift her weight and glance toward the hallway as if looking for an exit. "You think you can control this?" I said quietly. "Control me. Control him. But you have no idea what you've started." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't make this dramatic, Daniel." But it was too late. The air had already changed. Something inside me had clicked into place. Something steadier than rage, colder than shock, sharper than heartbreak. And Emily sensed it. For the first time all evening, she stepped back. I left the kitchen without a word, my steps echoing against the hardwood floor, each one deliberate, controlled. I didn't slam doors, didn't shout. Anger had its place, but in that moment, clarity had its own rhythm. Outside, the night air hit me like a cold wave, sharp and bracing. I walked to my car, keys heavy in my hand, and sat in silence for a long time, thinking, planning, feeling the raw edges of betrayal settle around me. Matthew, my brother, my blood, the man I had once called a hero, now an architect of destruction in my life. I knew I had to confront him, not with fists, not with shouting, but with the cold truth. There could be no excuses, no denial. Not anymore. I drove straight to his apartment, headlights cutting through the quiet streets. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I just needed the first honest reaction I could get, face to face. He opened the door before I could knock properly, confused, rubbing his eyes as though I had woken him from sleep. "Daniel," he said, voice wary. "What?" I held up a hand. No words yet. Just a stare that carried the weight of everything Emily had confessed. He blanched almost immediately. "It's true," I said finally, voice low but steady. "You slept with Emily, and she's pregnant." Matthew froze. His lips parted slightly, as though to speak, but the words faltered. I saw guilt, fear, and something more, panic. "Daniel, Don't." I interrupted sharply. "Don't give me excuses. Don't justify. I need the truth, all of it right now." He swallowed hard, eyes flicking to the floor. It just happened. One night, I didn't think. I repeated, disbelief sharpening my tone. "You didn't think?" 3 months, Matthew. 3 months she lied to me, to all of us, and you did nothing. He looked up, finally meeting my eyes, and for a moment I thought he might break. But he didn't. He just nodded faintly, acceptance in the curve of his shoulders. "You're right," he said quietly. "I messed up big time." That admission alone did nothing to soften the blow. I left without another word, leaving him frozen on his doorstep as I drove back home. The house was quiet, Emily nowhere in sight. I walked in, each step echoing through the emptiness, and went straight to the living room. The papers she had left behind, the calendar with her meticulous handwriting marking appointments. Everything screamed a life carefully planned around lies. I sat down and let the weight of reality settle. There were decisions to make, immediate, critical, and unavoidable. Emily's arrogance had made one thing clear. She expected me to react in fear, to beg for a marriage that had already been broken in the darkest way possible. But I felt no fear. Not anymore. What I felt was control. Control over myself, my choices, my life. The next morning, I filed for separation. I contacted a lawyer, outlined everything, and for the first time in months, felt a flicker of relief. I wasn't just reacting, I was reclaiming. Emily might have tried to corner me into submission, but I refused. I refused to let her manipulation dictate my life. I refused to let Matthew's betrayal define me. When Emily returned later that day, she found me calm, collected, composed. Her shock was palpable. For once, I held no anger in my voice, no trembling in my hands. I told her the truth plainly. The marriage was over. The child she carried would have a role in our lives, yes, but not the control she had hoped to exert. I outlined boundaries, legal arrangements, and made it clear that her power over me was finished. She tried to argue, tried to manipulate, tried to inject guilt, but each word bounced off me. The Emily I had loved, the Emily who had shared secrets and laughter, was gone. In her place stood someone I barely recognized, someone capable of destruction, cruelty, and entitlement. I refused to bend. I refused to break. Matthew reached out, timid and apologetic, and I made him understand that forgiveness wouldn't erase consequences. He would have to face responsibility, not just with me, but with himself. He had betrayed the trust of a brother, a family, a life built around honesty. Redemption wasn't automatic. Redemption wasn't guaranteed. Over the weeks that followed, the air in my life shifted. No longer suffocated by lies, I began to breathe again. Nights were quiet but not lonely. They were mine to reclaim. Work, friends, the small pleasures of life slowly filled the void Emily and Matthew had left. I didn't seek revenge, not really, but I did ensure boundaries, control, and self-respect. That, I realized, was the most potent retaliation. And then one evening, as I watched the sun dip behind the horizon, I understood the truth. Life doesn't always hand you closure in cinematic moments. Sometimes, it gives you quiet clarity instead. Emily and Matthew would have their consequences, their regrets. I would have peace. I would have agency. And in that, I finally found a strength I hadn't known existed. Because betrayal can break you, or it can teach you that your own life, your own heart, and your own choices are yours alone. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was entirely unequivocally free.